Hello and welcome to Making Gains with Radzi in association with the University of Derby and Finnebrogue's Naked Bacon, the biggest revolution to happen to British breakfast in a generation. Now, I'm delighted to say that on Making Gains, we have our first ever woman on the podcast. She is none other than 3 times the world's strongest woman. What a way to start. Donna Moore, welcome to Making Gains.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Donna. Can we start off by just going through your numbers, by the way, because they really are off the charts. And I think if you go 10 years back in strongwoman, very different to what it is now. So can we go through those numbers?
Yeah, it's very different to what it is now. The sport's really progressed. So my numbers at the moment, we haven't really tested them for a while. So it's like 120 overhead for a log, 130 like push press with the bar. My deadlift's not that awesome, to be fair, so it's probably 255 from the floor. I don't know, what else do you want to know?
In terms of deadlift, so Andrea Thompson 290 was her.
Yeah, 290. It's amazing.
It seems like you two are just kind of pushing each other right now. It's really awesome to see.
Yeah, and it really helps that we get on well. So yeah, there's some stuff that Andrea's really excels at, and there's other things that I would have stronger events than Andrea in. So it really can just depend on the events of the day and who messes up less to what outcome there will be.
So you have an overhead log, overhead barbell, if you like, deadlift.
Yeah.
Bench press.
My bench press is like 140, but to be fair, I don't really do an awful lot of like just flat bench. I prefer incline or close grip bench press. So sometimes Jenny lets me go and do what I want, and I'll just go and bench press for a day, and then I'm bored of it again. So it's
Jenny,
out of my system. Yeah, Jenny Todd. Yeah, she's my programming, and she has done that for quite a while now. So we also get on well, and trust her programming, and it's worked out well for me, I have to say.
I'll have to talk to you about your programming in a second, but just to finish off the numbers, so back squat?
No, my back squat's not great, only about 180, so let's not ever have that in a competition.
See, I think when you keep saying it's not great, a lot of people, myself included, go, I won't tell you what mine is then. But finally, Atlas Stone, your world record off the charts.
Yeah, I love them the most. That's what I'll say all the time. So that's 171.3. Get that bit in there.
200 grams.
Yeah. Over a 48-inch platform, the same Tom's platform. So we set the bar high for ourselves, seeing as he's like about 1.5 foot or more taller than I am. So I was like, yeah, we'll do the same. But we still did it. It was okay.
It was a special moment when you got that, and you could see what it meant to you. And to do it during lockdown, when there isn't a lot to kind of target, what went through your head when you actually got the stone over the bar?
Well, I was really, obviously, really happy, but I was kind of like itching for a little bit more. Really, it was great to be able to train for it, and the biggest stone that I had access to that wasn't like an absolute, monster, giant stone was 160. So really, it was quite a big jump on an Atlas stone, that weight. So I just had to train for the reps and the height, more specifically, just get the movement patterns, sorted as much as possible. And then also having to go to Scotland and go to somewhere that you don't know with the equipment that you don't know, and also it was a brand new Atlas stone, so that kind of changes the way that it is, because no one's ever used it before, and the texture of the outside of them, the more people use them, kind of like the nicer they are. So I was a bit I did have a little bit of a worry about that, but we gave it a good wipe down, let it sit overnight, and it was perfect.
So when it comes to Atlas stones, what people may not necessarily know is that you'd think a 160 Atlas stone is going to be the same no matter where you find it, but they vary enormously.
Yeah, they do. Some of them can be, slightly different diameters. Some can be really, really obviously well made, that the weights are just, in the right exact place, but others can be, a little bit off. So that, that weight, if you're trying to control it, if it's just a little bit not quite right, can have a bit of a problem. And also depends of, what else they're made out of. Some, obviously the one that I had was, a great quality one, it was nice and smooth and sanded down. But other ones, people are just making them. They're, maybe not quite the same.
What does it actually feel like when you've got your arms around something where you can't, let's say, get a deep muscular contraction like you can in just hypothetically a leg press? If you go in the gym and you rep out as hard as you can, you're going to feel it deep in your glutes, your quads, etc. But it's so tendony. What is it? What goes through your actual body when you're lifting it?
I'm really just thinking. I think mainly more about the cues that I use to lift Atlas stones. So, especially when I'm sitting there with it on my knee, it does kind of feel a little bit like weightless. It's bizarre because it just seems to, for me, it just seems to sit there, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is okay, because I'm hugging it as tight as I possibly can to my body so that it doesn't slip when I'm trying to lift it up higher. So I just squeeze. That's all that's in my brain, is squeeze. And that's really what I'm doing. My face will probably tell you the same.
When do you know that you've got it? Is it literally when you let go of it, or do you know at a certain point, if I get it above hip, knee, whatever, it's mine?
No, I try to always commit to the whole process. When it's over, then it's over. But Atlas stones can just be a little bit, obviously because they're circles, if they just catch on anything, they just fall straight back. There's no handles to grab to stop it. And when they're that high up and that particular shape, you can't really do much with them. So you really have to commit to going over at least.
Traditionally in Atlas stones, you have a stone run, and it's against somebody that you can't necessarily see. Going into that, do you think to yourself, I'm going to check to see where they are? Or is it just a case of blinkers on, I do what I do and try and just block all that out?
Yeah, literally that's what I do, because usually it's usually around the last event. So, it could be the make or break of the competition, really. So I'm not really interested in anybody else. I'm just thinking all of my cues and for each stone, and going between them as quickly as possible. And then maybe I would look at the end when I was done, and hope that I'd finished before the other person. But I think if you're spending time checking on an event that really requires you to have every single part of the lift, especially when they get heavy, in a specific way to execute a successful lift, that if you break your concentration to look at somebody else, I think that it would be game over. And like we said at the start there, it's usually the last event. It could be a total place game changer. So concentration, full steam ahead, really.
Because it's funny to think about the distraction. I was watching recently, I think it's 2005 World's Strongest Man. In fact, 2006, I think it might be. And you've got Marius is against Phil Pfister. Marius, it appears, gets distracted, is late on the last stone, even though he's the fastest, really, of the two stone lifters. Phil wins it. But that final stone was less than your world record on the stone. So in 15 years,
oh, no way.
Yeah. Amazing how far, specifically, Strong Woman has come. It's almost unrecognizable, the fact that if we went back 2005, you'd be essentially competing with Marius.
Yeah, well, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that. I know that the women's sports really come on, and like some of the weights that we do lift now are comparable back to some of the the world's strongest men events. I think yoke would be one of them. You know, that similar kind of event. Well, we've got a car walk coming up at OSG in November if we can all travel, and that's over 300 kilos. So the guys previously in World's Strongest Man, a 300 kilo yoke or car would have, you know, been at the top end of what they were doing too. You know, so
Nice.
it's really has come on. It's amazing to me. It's amazing, even just the growth of it since I've been, you know, participating, and I just hope that it continues. I really do.
Well, I think it will, especially with the likes of you and Andrea pushing each other. But one of the reasons I was so excited to chat to you personally is you mentioned the lady behind essentially your programming is to talk about your structure and specifically how you approach strongman and how you train. So how does your programming look?
Well, at the moment, it's a little bit different. Obviously, we've got no gyms, but if we're talking, you know, like say competition prep, that kind of thing. So I would train about five times a week, and it would be 5 to 6, so 4 or 5 gym sessions, and then just one event session. We'll try and combine some of the moves into my regular gym programming. So whereas other people can probably have, you know, some events in with their gym things because they've got everything in one place, I'm not that fortunate. So I would have to separate mine down really. So I would have 2 press days, a deadlift, and then another lower body kind of squat or variation of, you know, that kind of thing with all the accessories to go with that. We do quite a lot of core work, carries, single leg things. I do quite a lot of single leg work, and just keep a note of anything that I may be finding difficult or is not working for me, and we will amend that. So we have a really good communication channel, which I think is important, so that Jenny knows how, if I'm tired or if the session was too difficult or if I could have maybe pushed a bit more, that kind of thing. With my event trainings, generally with Jack Lovett at Spartan, and literally he just takes care of all of that. So I turn up, you know, I'm wanting to utilize my time with Jack and my time that it took me to get there, so it's a good drive in the car, and I just literally, Jack decides what we're going to do, follows his program that he's written for it, and I just literally do that. So it works well for us. I'm a good, this is what we will do today, and off you go. But again, you know, if there's any niggles or I'm tired or something's not going right, we amend the session as it's going along. You know, they're very good to tailor for my specific needs, because of course I've got a job and I go to work, so it's not all plain sailing. And trying to figure it all out. Yeah,
a week, is it? It's quite a committed job that you've got full time.
Yeah, full time. So just at the moment, I work for the NHS. So I'm back to shift work. I've primarily been a shift worker in that kind of, you know, that kind of environment, really. So, you know, sometimes the sessions would have to be doubled up because I wouldn't be able to go another day, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'd be events with Jack in the morning and I'd maybe go and press in the evening, something like that. So yeah, it's you know, I am organised and we really tailor what I'm going to do to get the most out of my time. Obviously, with having a full-time job, it can be difficult too, and children. So yeah,
because I guess that is another factor, is being a mother as well. It's something that I guess in strong man you wouldn't necessarily consider. You wouldn't think of somebody as, it's harder for him because he's a dad. You just consider it, they're all men. Whereas I guess being a woman and having commitments with children, that's a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah, and I think because I've been primarily by myself, so it's, you know, trying to juggle everybody's needs and wants, and as they get a bit older, they need to be, you know, taxied more places and, you know, things like that. So it's you know, it can be quite difficult, but it's all really about the best time management you've got. So I'm quite good at time management, although other people would say that I wouldn't be. I feel that I am.
You mentioned taxing people. I remember when I first met you, it was at Giants Live. It was you and Andrea together, actually, and we did a quiz to the crowd. And the first thing that struck me about you both is I thought, I look like a child next to the pair of you. So what sort of reaction do you get when you turn up with your kids to drop them off somewhere? Do people sort of go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that?
Probably. If I go to parents' evening, I always try and dress not like in my gym clothes. But sometimes it can't be helped. So they do kind of. It's the same as if you're walking around. People just give you a bit of a side eye kind of thing. But some of the teachers would know what I do, and then they'd be used to seeing you. But generally, I'm not really all that bothered about what other people think. I'm doing my purpose in life, so this is what comes along with it. So
you're doing very well.
Yeah.
In terms of that pressing session that you spoke about before, what would that actually look like in terms of exercises, sets, rep ranges, that kind of thing?
Again, it depends on what stage we are of competing, or we're in like a rest phase at the minute. So, well, not rest phase, sort of like a downtime, rehabby kind of thing. So at the moment, the weights are maybe not particularly heavy, but I do quite a lot of things with time under tension. Yeah, so, and I really enjoy that. I find it quite challenging. So if you've got like a 6-second eccentric on an overhead press, it's tough to be controlling, weights all the way down. And I like to keep my form as technically good as possible. So, I really strive for that, to be as, perfect as it can be. So that's another thing that I work a lot on at the moment. So rep ranges, I suppose, on the main things at the minute can vary between 4 to 8, and I know that this week I've got sets coming up of just like 1 to 2, because we're coming to the end a little bit of overhead press, but still with the slow negatives. The workouts at the moment kind of maybe a bit more of an all body approach, and I'm also rehabbing an injury. So we've got a lot of, again, single leg things, because I've got a problem with one of my knees. So we're trying to, keep as much muscle tissue as possible, but, protect the knee. But a lot of single leg things have great carryover to other things, core stability, which is, everybody in strongman needs a good core strength. Everything is determined by that, really. So I'm hoping that when we come out of lockdown, and I'll be able to do things properly again, and my leg will be better.
What is the injury?
I injured myself before the stone lift, actually, and I'm not really sure what happened. I can't even pinpoint doing anything particularly, and it's a problem with the inside my knee, and it's to do with the medial femoral condyle, which is like the end of the bones, the little bony shape. So there's a problem with that, so it limits the range of movement. It was quite fluidy and swollen, but we've got that bit more under control, and we just work around it as much as possible. So therefore I'm not squatting at the moment, and I'm not deadlifting from the floor either, just because the bend really is just a bit much at the minute still. So maybe in a couple more weeks.
I guess not ideal then to try and put 171 kilograms of concrete on the inside of it when you're going for a world record.
No, it wasn't ideal, but that particular moment I didn't even think about it. I'm in the place where my journey started, in the Highland of Scotland, with my Luke, especially, who I started out strongman with, in their gym, with my favorite event, with Tom, who is also awesome at the stones. Like, what else could there be? There's no other, Zadrunas is there on the screen. What else could be better? So I didn't really think about it. I just had to lift it and get it over there, So I was lucky.
The competition side of it, because I know before I've heard you kind of say that when you turn professional, when you become serious, you almost don't get to enjoy the competition as much. But even the way you're describing that there, even though you're doing something that you don't know if you're going to be able to achieve it, you're still able to kind of be aware that this is pretty flipping cool.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think as well as a little bit of a different circumstance with that. I still had like essentially a job to do, but I can still soak up the atmosphere of, it was a great full circle approach, for myself. But at the competitions, I suppose if I look back at them, I did enjoy them, but at the time of doing them, I wouldn't necessarily say it's loads of actual fun. it's a it's a lot of concentration and controlling of yourself. It can be quite, well, it is, mentally taxing as well as physically taxing, like keeping all your shit together really for that specific time over maybe 3 days. It's a long time to keep the concentration and the end goal in sight at all times.
Do you know Rob Frampton at all?
Yes, yeah, yes.
So Rob, just a really, really fascinating guy. And I remember when Bish was going for his 440 deadlift and he went out for 400 and he just shouted at him as he went out. He went, "Okay, Bish, second to last warm up, mate. Second to last warm up." I thought, what? So Bish lifted 400 relatively easily. And afterwards I said, "Rob, what was that about?" He said, "Mate, what it is, when you shoot him for a number," he went, "the problem is everything about that day, you become obsessed with it. And all you're thinking about is you get to the venue and you're thinking, right, this is when I try and lift that 440. You went, you go to the bar and regardless of what number you're on, you're going, okay, I've got to lift that 440 today." He went, "So all we worry about is the next lift." He went, "So it's second to last warm up is 400. Last warm up is 420. Then we turn it on." He said, and it was something about the way he said it. I actually get that. That makes if I'm going for a PB, which they're not impressive numbers, but they are big for me. I'm thinking about that. It could be a week out. I'm going, I don't want to miss that. I want to get this. And therefore, all that adrenaline is just leaving my body and I'm losing energy for the actual flipping lift. And so, like, I totally get what you're talking about, trying to manage that as well as be present and as well as get to the Highlands and arrange and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, that's right. It can be like a quite, like arduous process. And I do, like you say, you'll be thinking about it all week. But to me, if I'm thinking about it all week, I don't seem to let the energy escape. I'm like visualizing. So I would be visualizing lifting that lift when we came to it. So when I'm there and I'm present in the moment, then it's kind of already been done. That's the way that I try to approach them. I also think about my next training sessions as well. As soon as that one's done, I'm thinking about the next one, making sure that I'm like adequately fueled. This is what time that I would like to be there. This is what I will do in my day before I get to the gym at that time, or I'm going to work, walk the dog, make sure everybody in the house has got food, then, go to the gym. So it's all, laid out so that when I get there, then that's the only thing that I need to be really concentrating on. And I've also thought about it all week. So it's the way that I like to work it. But I think, discussed it before, it's like a skill. It's a skill that you learn the longer that you've been competing, that you are able to do that with your mind. When I first started competing, it's not like that at all. And I would be like visually shaking before I lifted anything because I was so nervous and I couldn't control that aspect of going to lift. I was just too nervous. That was all, literally. And I couldn't even do anything else because the energy, like you say, was escaping from me before I even lifted it, before the whistle had even gone. So, I've worked a lot on trying to control those kind of aspects of competing and lifting.
I think in life we kind of focus on destinations, and I think we also focus on the end product. So Big Z, I've been fortunate enough to be very close to him when he's lifted, and regardless of if he's having a good competition or bad, he does this thing with his mouth where he kind of exhales into his cheeks. He sort of goes, and he just walks around doing that constantly, and then we'll go to lift. And you could almost feel like this furnace is inside of him. And then when he comes to the actual lift, the heat just cranks up that little bit more. But when he isn't, it's there. It's almost like the engine's just ticking over until it comes to action. And I thought, I wonder if he's always been like that, if he's always been able to manage it. And then I watched, I think, his world record attempt when I'm going to go, it was about 195 log press. And this is going back to about maybe 15 years ago, maybe a bit less. And he's a different guy. And you think, so even the greatest have to learn. And it is actually a skill, like you say, that you acquire and get better at.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose you can, as well, if you watch them, say, like Zadrunas, he's obviously always been, good. But the difference is, in the way that his technique is, the way that he is, you can see it evolving over the time to, like, the awesomeness that it is today. It's been like a long process for him, and like I've always got questions ready for him whenever I see him. He probably thinks, oh my goodness, what now? And actually with Zadrunas, I was going to the Arnold, I think, and I found him like left unattended in an airport, and I was like, oh my god. So I was straight over there trying, like talking to him, and he must have just thought, please, sweaty, crazy lady, will you just go away? But I was there with my questions. Well, if I would be the same if people wanted to ask me something or I was left unattended in an airport, then, ask away. So, it was, it's nice to learn from people. And I, talk to him in general just about like lifting whenever we've gone to competitions. He's very, very easy to talk to and obviously very knowledgeable too. So I like to soak it all up.
What sort of questions have you asked him, by the way, about that side?
Well, I've asked him things about like nutrition, about his training in different environments as well, because coming from like a colder country in the winter, and I think it was going to World's Strongest Man, and it was in some place that was going to be really hot. So like asking him, did you change your training? Did you try and go somewhere hot? Just kind of things that I must have at the time thought that was interesting. But now I ask him about him and, what's he doing, things like that. So he's just probably used to it. It just goes, I'll just talk to her, she'll go away soon.
He's unfazed at everything, that man. He's just such a legend.
Yeah.
But with yourself, you mentioned OSG, Official Strongman Games, in November, fingers crossed. Do we have details about that yet in terms of what the events might be?
Yeah, so there's the car walk that I mentioned earlier. There's bag toss, log, which is just one clean and press away, so that's quite nice. The deadlift ladder and a carry medley and at the stones. Woohoo! So it's over 3 days, and the top 10 cut to the last day. Out of each like heavyweight, out of each category. Sorry, I forgot the word there. So the stones are in the last day, and I think the bag toss is in the last day. But the rest of them, it's kind of leaves the field quite a lot more wide open, because they're quite heavy actually, which you expect them to be. But it's going to really split everybody up, I think. So the log is, sorry?
What do you prefer? Do you prefer a heavy comp, or do you prefer something that's a bit more mobile and athletic?
Well, myself, I like to be running around really. So I would prefer a bit more running, but I think they've got the mixture quite well down in this one. So it's like 2 moving events really. If you've got the the car walk and the carry drag medley. A nice static log press, which is 106 kilo, so that's quite up there as well. Deadlift ladder, which is I really like that as an event, because it combines deadlifting with running and again, in preparation, sorry, just to go back, that's something is to practice, getting in between the bars, making sure that every single time you get your hands and your feet in the right place so you don't mess it up, you know, little things like that. So, and I don't know what else. Atlas stones, obviously, I like the Atlas stones. So I don't really care anymore. I would prefer to pick my events, but whatever they are, it's okay. We'll just train for it and do the actual very best that I can do.
You see, you spoke about almost going between the deadlift bars. I think it's something that not everybody, I think people are increasingly, but I don't think everybody focuses on those bits. And those are all, to me, free gains. So when you watch, say, Adam Bishop train, another SBD athlete, he is meticulous between his stones down to his breathing. And every single time, it's the same movement. Brian Shaw, I remember seeing him at WUS in whenever the first World Ultimate Strongman was. He had basically all the stones in the long stone run they had. He was walking between them and asking the officials to move it slightly to the left, slightly to the right, slightly forward, because he, in his head, gone, right, I'm going to move my body in this way. And I thought, that's the difference, clearly, between the best and the absolute cream of the crop.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also be the same with, say, example, with a stone run. I would want them all to be where I want them to be, with the distances as equal as they possibly can. And like you said, the made up time is the time between each lift and those kind of things. So if Zadrunas is like another great example of it, it's just like a little sidestep, you know, we're not actually crossing our legs over or anything. We're just literally stepping, you know, over to the next one. And I think, like you say, all of the lifts are exactly the same. Like Adam Bishop is really technically proficient at everything. I enjoy watching his YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I think that is what a lot of people miss out on, is like the time to technically perfect them. Yes, you may be able to get that number, heavy number, that's really, really great. But when we're going to need five of them, then your technique is what is going to keep you being able to get that. So I like to be, like I said before, like technically proficient. So at the moment, like female weights might not be that high, but we're really focusing on them being as technically perfect as possible. For the my push press at the moment is like, as I can break down my reps I've been given into the sets that I want. So I'm trying to get them into as high a number as I can, so that my body's used to doing that amount of reps when it comes to, you know, a competition. So being technically perfect is a good thing.
I remember Bish and I went to the same uni together, Loughborough. I remember when he pulled 300 off the floor. When he deadlifted that in power-based gym, that was a whoa moment. And funnily enough, his technique wasn't very good that day, but to see him go from that, where 300, I mean, he got the rep, but just to now see him pulling 440 and make it look really solid. You think the metamorphosis he's gone through, which actually isn't that dissimilar to yours, because that was over about a 10-year period he's done that. I cannot believe when I found out that actually a lot of your adult life, you haven't been training for strongwoman.
No, in fact, most of it. So no, I hadn't been at all. I just kind of fell into it, I suppose, a little bit, and it just kind of like sucked me in, and I'm still in it right now. No, I didn't really do any particular sport. I've always been about outdoorsy. I've had horses, and I've talked before and other things. I used to be able to swim. Well, I can, not used to be, swim well, but I didn't have any interest in competing in it, much to like the PE teacher at schools like dismay. But you know, it just wasn't a thing that I was interested in until I got older and found something that I actually really love to do, and this is it really. And how much longer I keep going at it for, I don't know, but it brings me happiness, you know, training and the process of it. So I think as long as I can perform as well as I want to, and it still brings me happiness, it's something that I will still like to do.
And would you still like to do Arnold's, by the way? Because that's another big one that is a bit of a question mark again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's maybe meant to be August and September, but if I hope that it does go on, I think it's pretty crowd, capacity dependent. A lot of the Arnold is, stalls and exhibitions for the public, and if you don't have that, like 2000 and well, last March 2020, where it was just the athletes and no stands and no anything. It's not really the same. It was great to get to see everybody firsthand without having to battle your way through the crowd or anything. But it's not quite the same for the Arnold, I suppose. But if it gets to go ahead, then of course I would love to go. It's the Arnold. It's get to go and do the road record breakers as well. Hopefully, if they put something like that on too, they're always quite interesting. So I like the Arnold and the platform that it gives to women on the main stage. It's something that's important. It's important to me. That's the main thing of the Arnold. I want the women to be on the stage, as well as the guys, showing the world that women can do strong things too, and to have the platform of the Arnold and their social media reach as well. I find it's a need to do it.
Absolutely. And I think I like athletics, track and field, and I remember speaking to one of the greatest shot putters of all time, a lady called Valerie Villi, latterly Valerie Adams. And I remember saying to her, out of interest, what do you power clean? And she said, what, for reps? I said, well, what be 1 rep max? She went, we don't really do 1 rep maxes. And she went, but I suppose sort of for reps, maybe 140, 150 for 6. There are great British male sprinters who do not hit 150 for 6 in power clean. Fact. I thought,
yeah,
what just a monster. And
yes,
it's awesome that actually now in the world, guy, girl, tall, short, fat, thin, black, white, whatever, there's kind of an acceptance that if you want to do what was weird stuff, knock yourself out. And people like yourself are really leading that charge.
Yeah, and I really hope that I am. I know if anybody would see Strongman or see me doing anything and think, oh, that's really cool, I would like to have a go at that. That's the important thing for me about it. It's great to be able to do what I love, but I also want other people to come and join, the sport for mental health, physical health, general well-being. I think this time we've all struggled unless you've got access to the gym without any actual exercise. People need to move. So if somebody wants to come along and try Strongwoman, I think that they would find it quite liberating and empowering, and hopefully they would improve their general well-being by just doing some kind of physical activity that maybe they had not considered. So that's what I like to show people, really. I'm not beastly strong all the time, and I'm not doing all the cool things all the time, but if you can show people what you can do, then maybe they would come and join in as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just finally, now this is a bit of a weird question. What do you think when it comes to training is harder about being a woman, and what's better about being a woman?
Oh, that is you should have told me that one before.
The part of the reason I say that is, so when I was at uni, I used to also work at what they called the HIPAC, so the High Performance Athletic Centre. And I would say, generally speaking, the female athletes were more diligent than the male athletes on the whole. And that doesn't mean there aren't diligent male athletes, but if you just took a sample, I'd say the people that were there on time predominantly were the girls, the ones who got every session done to the best of their ability, the girls, whereas the boys, I'd say a lot more hit and miss. And the way you've spoken about your attitude to preparation, it's all very meticulous. And so I just wonder, sort of, that's kind of what made me think about it. I thought, I wonder if actually being a woman, you actually have different advantages that men would never even think about.
I suppose, like what you've just said, it maybe is like the diligence, and also I think women are less inclined to quit when it gets hard. Well, I don't know if that's maybe just a personal thing. Well, they're a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think you've just got that last little bit in reserve that you have, whereas the guys would be like, oh, I'm done, and I'd be like, no. let's do it again, or let's get a few more meters. You know, that kind of mindset. At least when I've been with other women, that's, you know, what I've thought of. If I've trained with Jenny, you know, we're both the similar, you know, mentality. And I don't think there's any disadvantages. And of course, I would say that about being female. It's just different ways of managing anything that might be difficult to you, I suppose. But no, I think, like you say, like the diligence, being on time, organisation, less likely just to kind of wing it. You know, I think it's more important, because I don't know if women feel their time is more important, so they're less likely just to be so blasé about it. You know, I'm here cooking my food and you know, organising my time and writing my diary and, you know, things, what I need to accomplish, things like that. I don't know if all men do that. I know I certainly do, but I don't know if other guys do that. My partner, for example, would not be the same. He would just be like, no, I'm done, and I'm not cooking, and I don't want to train. But I would be like, right, I am cooking, I am training, and yes, that was hard, but let's see if we can make it better. You know, maybe that's the difference.
I wonder if it's an ego thing, because I think when you sing about staying in it when it's hard, I wonder if there's a sense of that as a guy, I don't like doing things I'm bad at. And I definitely don't want to stay doing things that I'm bad at. I want to show, hey, look at me, you know, booger booger, look at me, I'm amazing. Whereas I feel as though, as you were saying, I thought, actually, I think women are much basically humbler than men on the whole. I mean, you don't see it's called bro science for a reason. It's not called cis science. You see, on the whole, training properly, whereas men, it's as soon as another man turns up, right, put 5 kilos on the bar, lads, we're going to go heavier. It's knob measuring competition.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have seen the bro parts in the gym. You know, and that can also be when I'm there, and you know, it may be for my benefit, but I would much rather see somebody lift something nicely than look like their face might explode whilst trying to, you know, say, oh, look, I can lift 10 more kilos than you. Awesome. Great.
The thing is, I can imagine you turn up. Yeah, right. But you're going to humble people when you turn up to a gym. It's people say, who's the strongest bloke in the gym? They're not expecting a lady called Donna to turn up and be the strongest person in the gym.
No. So, well, I think I'm quite lucky in my gym. I just get left alone. You know, that's the nicest bit about the gym that I choose. I did go to a commercial gym before, but I didn't like the environment, I have to say, mainly. Okay. So yeah, I think it's that was where mainly the more of the bro science would be. Although on a couple of occasions, especially when I'm competing, my biceps for some reason are absolutely ginormous. So I do enjoy going and do some biceps beside some boys, and then generally they go away. But like literally, it sounds really terrible, but that's literally the only time that I would do it. But I would probably laugh while I'm doing it as well, because I know that they're really big. So
I'm not doing biceps next to you then, Donna. That's
no. Yeah, so that's the only kind of like bro bit that I would go and do, just mainly because it raises my happiness level. I have a little chuckle to myself. So yeah.
And just really finally, you mentioned you're not sure how long you'll keep doing it, but as long as you keep enjoying it, as long as you keep competing as you are, you'll continue. What would give you enough to say, my work now is done? Would it be another world record? Any particular titles?
I'm not really sure. I've been thinking about this because people have asked me that before. I've like turned 40 now, so a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're going to go into the Masters now?" And I was like, "Well, no, not yet." Right. But I think that I'm lucky, I suppose, in that respect, that I got to achieve what I wanted, which was to win World's Strongest Woman, and anything else other than that has been a bonus for me. I've been fortunate to go around the world doing what I love, showing, women, other women, what women can do, showing the world what women can do. So anything else that I achieve from now is like a bonus, and I do it because it's fun and I want to. So who knows how long we'll keep going. Obviously, I would like to win the World's Strongest Woman again, but that's more of like the personal challenge of it rather than collecting titles. I felt comfortable and happy the first time that I won, so it was nice to keep being able to be in that. Is great. It's harder to retain a title than it is to win it in the first place. So winning the second time was also great, and I've lost and won it back again. So it's been a bit of a backwards and forwards kind of thing. So this year, yes, obviously I would like to win the Arnold, and I would like to win World's Strongest Woman. We'll see what happens.
What a perfect place to end. And Donna, I said you're the very first woman we've had on Making Gains, and what a way to begin with 3 times World's Strongest Woman, and who knows, could be 4 times this year. And Arnold's chuck that for 2021. It's been a really, really insightful chat. So thank you so much for your time, Donna.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Naked bacon. One day, all bacon will be made this way.